We think in this area, if the U.S. stays out front, we will be able to lead. Other countries are looking for us. We've been talking to lots of different groups and countries. If you move too quickly, you may fail. The EU learned that, and they've had to retract a little bit of what they have done. So we hope to have our legislation.
Several governors and state leaders are continuing to push for new legislation that would only establish new stimulus programs for people. This would include bonus check for many residents, and also the IRS. This service may be part of the IRS official name, but the tax agency has been lacking in this area over the past couple of years. This is because of the crisis and lots of stimulus-related law changes passed by Congress for the IRS to administer. The good news is the IRS made progress on its processing of returns, in part because it went on a hiring spree and shifted current personnel from other areas to assist with the backlog. As of this summer, the IRS finished processing all individual returns that it received in 2021 and had no errors, including 2020 e-filed and paper forms. Now, the bad news is the IRS still has a backlog of millions of unprocessed 2021 returns that are filed this year, the vast majority of which are paper file returns. As of July 29th, it had 10.2 million unprocessed individual returns for 2021. Of these, 1.8 million returns require special handling, such as error connection.
Many of the qualified applicants who began their EIDL application process prior to the May 6th deadline. So I think that we have to restore trust.
A big update on President Biden's fourth stimulus package, everybody. Joe Manchin has announced his new agreement with Chuck Schumer, and progressive lawmakers have proposed mailing inflation to relief checks. Now, these checks may be sent out to low-income households, Social Security beneficiaries, and even families. You want to be sure to stay until the end of the video to know if you can receive the latest stimulus check from President Biden. Congress is planning on taking big action this week, as they are now in session, and Joe Manchin of West Virginia is already holding meetings with other lawmakers to finally close a deal. According to NBC News, alongside Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Joe Manchin held a meeting on climate initiatives. This was an effort to see whether a bipartisan deal can be cut with Republicans. Manchin has told reporters, "If I can find something bipartisan, we don't need reconciliation." Democrats have been using for over a year, allowing them to bypass the 60-vote threshold to end a potential filibuster. He later added that one area of shared interest could be overhauling the federal oil and gas leasing program. It's urgent to find out if there's a pathway, he said. If there's any way, then we can find a pathway in a bipartisan way. Now, a spokesperson for Manchin said the meeting was an effort to gauge bipartisan interest in a path forward that addresses our nation's climate and energy security heads-on. The progressive lawmakers are also trying to come up with an agreement with Manchin. House Representative Ro Khanna said in a statement that passing a bold bill is his highest priority, and he was pleased to participate with colleagues on finding a way forward. Joe Manchin has voiced support in recent months for a package centered on clean energy spending, cutting prescription prices, and rolling back the 2017 Republican tax cuts. Democrats hope to cut a deal with Manchin on the bill as soon as possible. Some of the Democratic Party are pushing to strike an agreement on their priorities by Memorial Day. Inflation has been rising at a clip not seen in 4 decades, pushing up prices on just about everything and eating into household finances. To help residents grappling with the increased cost as a result of crisis-driven inflation, the Maine legislature passed a budget that included relief checks for Mainers. An estimated 850,000 residents will be eligible for the extra cash to help cover the increased cost of things, ranging from higher energy costs to increased prices for everyday goods. Governor Janet Mills' proposal was passed overwhelmingly by the state legislature, which will return half of the budget surplus to the taxpayers for a total of $729.3 million. Unlike last year's relief program, which was a thank you to Mainers who worked during the early days of the crisis, there is no wage requirement this time around. The state expects to send out checks to approximately 333,000 more residents through this program. Only full-time Maine residents that file a 2021 Maine individual income tax return and meet the income thresholds will receive the $850 inflation relief checks. Although the tax filing deadline has passed, Mainers can still submit a tax return to access the boost in their finances. However, they only have until October 31st, 2022. Also, those eligible must not be claimed. Borrowers could see the loan cancellation reflected on their accounts within 6 weeks. The relief payment will be limited to borrowers who make less than $125,000 a year, or married couples or head of households earning less than $250,000 a year. Their education department is also considering people's so-called adjusted gross income, which will affect how you will receive your
Rescue plan. Connecticut is set to receive $2.6 billion in state relief and $1.6 billion in local relief phased in beginning this year until 2024. Now, what are the funds set to go towards? The governor says almost $1 billion is set to support schools, focusing on temporary learning programs to catch up students. There will also be extended unemployment insurance benefits and support for public health, economic recovery, and vulnerable communities. The governor joined by Senator Chris Murphy, who says this.
Because now a big day is coming for Americans, the Social Security Administration has a new update for Social Security and SSI. New direct checks worth as much as $2,000 are set to arrive tomorrow. Officials have confirmed that some recipients will get and not always receive their usual monthly payment this month. Instead, they will be giving away some stimulus cash, possibly. And now the third round of financial Social Security return benefits worth up to $4,200 is scheduled to go out to recipients in tomorrow. Now that amount that recipients will receive from these checks will vary based on several income factors, including when a person would choose to retire and start receiving the benefits, as well as when a person is supposed to get stimulus. But according to the Social Security Administration, a person must have retired when he or she was above 70 to receive the $5,000 Social Security benefit that you should be getting. That's a free amount of stimulus. And recipients who retired at age 67 will get a maximum of $3,300, but anyone who retired at age 62 will get up to $2,300. The payment schedule for Wednesday will be for recipients who were born between the 21st and 31st of the month. Recipients of SSI will also receive the monthly income payment of $914 at the beginning of February, and the money from this payment will either be a lot or a little bit. It will allow people to afford basic necessities and food items and get shelter and food and things like that. Because according to the Fed, the payments are intended to help elderly, blind, disabled people who have low to no income of their own. Eligible SSI couples are essential, and people who are living on a fixed income cannot get that stimulus cash. Payment recipients are not receiving any payment for January because they received two payments in December, one on December 1st and 30th. The latter payment reserved is for SSI payments for January. In the year, the Social Security Administration will issue double payments to recipients in March, June, September, and December, as the first of the day will either be on a weekend or holiday. Because payments to SSI recipients will be slightly higher than the payments issued in 2022 due to the COLA made by the SSA. The payment amount issued to recipients in 2022 was already $841. This year's payment is $8.7, just higher to reflect the payment and adjustment. The Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office updated its long-term projections on the solvency of Social Security last month, finding that the program's major trust funds can be tapped out in 2023. And this budget found that if the projected gap between the outlays in the trust funds and revenue they receive is forecast, the balance of the trust funds will hit zero, and the Social Security Administration wouldn't be able to pay out for retirements as they come due. Specifically, the old